Hey guys, welcome back. It's Eric here from E&M Guns. So as I told you earlier in a video last Monday, I stepped down from doing church security. It was consuming quite a bit of time that I just didn't anticipate. But I did make a training video for the team, and I thought I would share with you guys because it's on use of force. And you'll have to check with your state and local laws because this kind of applies to Idaho, but any state that has the stand your ground, and there's a lot of good information in just being a church security team member that you might find useful. So sit back, we'll watch the video, and you guys can tell me what you think. In Idaho, civilian use of force is primarily governed by the stand your ground and the castle doctrine principles, which are significantly expanded upon and codified in 2018. Key legal principles: stand your ground under Idaho Code Section 1922A. You have no duty to retreat from any place you have legal right to be, your home, your car, your workplace. You may use force, including deadly force, if necessary, reasonable, believe it is necessary. Stand your ground under Idaho Code S-1920. Stand your ground under Idaho Code S-19-22A. You have no duty to retreat from any place you have legal right to be. Examples: your home, your car, your workplace, your place of worship. You may use force, including deadly force, if reasonable belief is necessary to prevent immediate death or serious bodily injury. The castle doctrine. This specifically applies to you, castle, your home, occupied vehicle, or place of business. Idaho law creates a presumption of fear. If someone unlawfully or violently enters this space, the law presumes you had a reasonable fear of immediate peril. Justify the use of force. Defense of others. This is where we're going to come in as church security. You may use force to protect another person if you reasonably believe they are in immediate danger of forcible felony, like robbery, sexual assault, or murder. Here's a standard in justifiable force. So standards for justifiable force. Reasonableness. Your actions are judged by what a reasonable person with your same knowledge would do in a situation without benefit of hindsight. Deadly versus non-deadly force. Non-deadly force, including restraining, can be used to stop general threats of physical harm. Deadly force is only legal when force facing a threat of death or serious bodily injury or preventing forcible felony. Burden of proof. In a criminal trial, the prosecution must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you used force was not justified. And then, of course, you got your legal protections and limitations. Civil immunity. If your use of force is found to be justified under state law, you are generally immune from civil lawsuit brought on by perpetrator or their family. Aggressor rule. You generally cannot claim self-defense if you were the initiator or the aggressor, or provoked the confrontation. Retaliation. Holy cow. Force is no longer justified once a threat has ended, i.e. the intruder is fleeing or incapacitated.
Hey, this is Keith from Christian Warrior Training. In this episode, we're going to talk about use of force. Specifically, we're going to talk about when to use force, how to decide to use force, what's reasonable force, when and how to use deadly force, when and how to use non-deadly force. So let's get into it. Let's talk about use of force and what's appropriate, what's not. Now, it's been my experience that traditionally people don't use enough force, okay? Because we have a moral trigger in our brain that keeps us from hurting people. And it's very hard to overcome that trigger, even when we have a clear reason to protect ourselves or somebody else. Now, the whole thing of excessive force, I have seen that a few times in my life. It has always been dealt with, but that really isn't as common as everybody likes to think. Now, essentially, you're going to be held to the same standard as a police officer.
So we look at use of force and what we might call a continuum or a diagram that we see here, kind of a guideline. So there's all kinds of names for it. There's trends of what's a cool name currently or what's the previous name, but typically we've called this like a use of force continuum. It gets bigger and bigger, and this is not the technical continuums, but this is just for us for a discussion here as I see it. I'm giving you my opinions from my experience, those kind of things. So I want to put this in a form that kind of fits with what we're talking about, what we're doing, what our professional level is and our experience, that kind of thing. So we're basically keeping it simple. So you talk about your church security member, your member, or you're basically a civilian, we're at that level. So what can we do as far as, and what should we be looking at? That's what I want to talk to you about in this session.
So as you can see, Keith Graves from Christian Warrior puts on a pretty brief description of use of force. The Church Answer guy puts on a little bit more, I don't know, I kind of liked a little more detail he gave. I just gave you kind of samples of each of their styles. I did like the fact that Keith Graves gave you the biblical standpoint of how to protect your flock at the church. I think that's important, especially if you are in a situation where you have to use force. So guys, as usual, have a blessed week. Love you. Peace out.